For those of you joining us, we're here on the Recruit podcast powered by Dwork AI, where we specialize helping recruitment companies scale their business over the next 12 months. Today, we have Jamie Riley from Pharma Search Partners. Jamie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am the creator, owner, heartbeat, mindset of Pharma Search Partners. Been doing this 25 years.
Wow, amazing, amazing. And I guess we can sort of just dive right in. So I guess you said you found this over 25 years ago. What made you start this company in the first place?
I after retiring from the military, um, stumbled on into a staffing agency looking for a job change. And the gentleman that owned it saw that my last command that I ran in the military was a recruiting command. I was operations chief, Marine Recruiting Command. And that's after spending 16 years in the infantry.
Wow.
And he said, you know what we do. Why don't you work for me instead of going and doing this other job, which was a warehouse foreman? I figured I can run a command, I can run a warehouse. So I did it, and I got in there, and it was interesting to learn what I did not know about the civilian world, how things are done. So we were doing engineering, and I had a client ask me to find a scientist for him.
Mm.
And I placed this scientist, and I thought it was very interesting what he did. So I went to the lab. I wanted to put my hands on the machinery,
Right. Yeah.
and fell in love with science. Spent a couple more years with the agency and figured I want to go deeper in that direction of true drug development, drug discovery. So I left there, opened my company in December 2005, and been doing it ever since. And it's been awesome. I mean, I've been part of drug launches. I built large teams, learned a lot. I have conversations like this with pharmacologists, toxicologists, pharmacometrics, QSP, and you learn what happens not only in how these drugs are developed, but you also learn what happens in your body. And that's the good takeaway. It's been awesome.
Yeah, wow. That certainly sounds like an amazing journey. And as you said, just it must have been so many different things that you learned from, coming from a military background, going into pharmaceuticals, that sort of learning curve. How did you find that yourself coming from a different background, now transitioning into pharmaceuticals?
It it drove you. You had to learn. You had to learn your product. You had to learn what you were talking about to talk to the candidates
Mm.
intelligently. And with that first scientist I placed, one of the things I did is I that's when I learned about publications. So I pulled some publications and I'm reading it, and I'm just stunned at how this stuff works. And now I went down that rabbit hole, and I learned publicate. I read publications a lot. I have very detailed, deep conversations with these scientists to understand more. And I believe that you need to do that to understand when you're working to recruit a role, not just know keywords, but understand what these folks do.
Mm.
And I've been doing this so long. There are people I know in the industry, and I've known for years, that they'll do a new publication or a poster and they'll send it to me because they know I read it,
Right.
and have deep conversations about, give me a day, tell me a day in your life. What are you doing? And if they say, well, I'm in quantitative pharmacology and I use non-mem and blah, 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 I'll pull it. What is that? I want to see. I want to see how it works. And it's interesting, but the biggest takeaway is not only the learning aspect and being able to talk to your candidates intelligently and with the respect they deserve,
Mm,
but you learn things about the human body that you don't know,
right.
about foods and about things like that. And it's been quite amazing and I've had family members that have been put on some of the pharmaceuticals that where my people helped launch.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's cool because I can call them and say, "Hey, what can you tell me about this I can't find?" So does this person need to drink a lot of water, or that kind of stuff. It's been a ride, and I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. No, that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. So I guess now where, 25 years, in the business down the line, you sort of you obviously, you sit at the top of the food chain at your company. What does a typical day look like for you now?
Um, and it really hasn't changed as long as I've been in the business.
Right.
A lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of conversations, discussions with people. Um, and try and balance it with trying to help new clients, making sure the candidates are taken care of, also filling jobs, um, educating myself because it's an evolving model, especially with
Mm,
the AI coming in. AI is now being used in precision medicine, in HEOR, things like that. They'll handle large data sets. So it's still a learning process, but any given day, it's it's 8-10 hours of phone calls and talking.
absolutely, absolutely. And I guess that's quite interesting because where you started 25 years ago, and you say you still sort of it's almost the same, but as you said, the advancements in technology and medicine as it is, does that require you to still be tapped in as you were 25 years ago, or do you have, I guess, people under you doing more of the research side, or are you still doing that yourself as well?
No, I'm still doing it. I actually push the people to learn.
Mm,
I cannot expect anyone that works with me to have the skill sets that I do because I've been doing this so long. So I mentor them and teach them, here's how you learn. Read this, read that, and
mm,
don't do this. When you're talking to these, exceptional professionals, be honest. I know what you do as an engineer, basically, but I don't know a day in your life. So educate me. And they are more than happy to do that.
mm,
And so I push for that, but I'm still do it a lot like I used to do. I'm not a big believer in, um, a lot. Automation is good. Automation has a place. Automation does not replace the human aspect.
absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a great point. What you mentioned is a lot of people think perhaps automation is going to come in and completely wipe out, the human aspect, but the human aspect is what makes it good. It's what separates you from the rest of the competition, right? So it's great to see that level of detail that perhaps you started with. It sort of carried you through, and it seems to me like that's it's almost what differentiates you from perhaps your competition as well, is you're still there every single day, and the people under you are learning from the same framework that you learned from. Therefore, that as it, I guess, transfers down, the hard work and the framework is not deteriorating, right? Because you're still giving the same training that perhaps you personally received as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I when I was in an agency, I had a boss that was good about the steps and processes, and that company was a national company. They were all about steps and processes, and you learned what the engineers did by just reading resumes and absorption.
Mm,
My drive to educate myself and understand further on the drug development, drug discovery process, I felt I could not treat the people I work with properly out of respect and I didn't want to sound stupid,
Mm,
but once you start reading that stuff, it just pulls you in. And um, I push the people, like I'll simplify it for them. If I'm working on a job, say in formulations, and one of my people, I've assigned it to them to find me candidates, and that's how we work. Everybody recruits, but everything goes through me. So if I say, here's a formulator, here's what they do, and I break it down in the simplest form, think of them as the chef of the pharmaceutical industry. Um,
mhm,
and here's what they do, and here's how they work. Here's what you're looking for, whether they're solid dose, liquid suspensions, what have you. And I educate them, and then I tell them, when you get the resume, pull a couple publications and read it. Ask the
mm,
person to educate you. And if nothing else, if they leave here and go somewhere else, they now at least know the processes and steps to make themselves a better recruiter.
mm. Absolutely, absolutely. And that yeah, that's very interesting. And I suppose leading on to that a little bit, the from where you started, from where you are now, and I guess with the addition of AI and stuff, what are the sort of biggest shifts you're seeing in the market right now, or perhaps over the last couple of years? How has that landscape changed, do you think?
And that's a good question. The adding in the AI technology aspect, the about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I wrote a publication because I write for a magazine also. I wrote a publication predicting that what would happen is, as our government changed, uh,
Mhm.
and the FDA is changing, NIH is changing, and all this stuff's changing, that there was going to be a lull, there was going to be confusion, there was going to be chaos, and with AI being used in various shops, because I already had people asking for AI skill sets on jobs 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, before it was a big thing.
Yeah.
Everybody was getting on that real quick,
Mhm.
and it caused some disruption. Uh, Add to that the changes of the government, which trickles down to the companies. We had 128 companies do reorganizations last year, whether it be financial, whatever.
Mhm.
But I said that was coming, but I also think that now that has settled, even though there's some big mergers and acquisitions going on, and AI and automations getting integrated, people are learning it. We're now seeing that we're headed into what I believe is going to be almost a candidate-driven market,
Mhm.
because these guys are figuring out the AI aspect. They're figuring out automation, but they're also figuring out it's not an end all be all. They're also figuring out, yeah, you can use it, goes through large data sets. You can use it as an initial device, say for going through resumes. You get 300 resumes for a job. If you teach AI correctly of what to find, you can pull your people. Now, here's where the human aspect comes into play in my mind. That AI is only can do what you tell it to do. But where the rub lands is, if you put in there, say you're working on um, uh, a pharmacology job, we'll just use that. And you tell it to look for PKPD, and you put PKPD, you don't put the slash in it, you don't spell it out. If that candidate's resume doesn't have PKPD, it's not going to pull it.
No.
But the recruiter who knows what they're talking about can look at the whatever scoring systems, from what I understand, that they use in the corporate world. If someone scored, say, 75%, and it says may not want to talk to this person, if that recruiter has enough knowledge of their skills to say, let me check. Ah, here we go, PKPD. Or if that person does this job, they should know they got to have that. See what I mean? So don't
Yeah,
let AI tell you what to do. Use it to make things move fast with large data sets, but don't forget the human aspect.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think until, you know, AI is able to develop its own consciousness, that human aspect is always going to be there, right? To you're always going to need that to differentiate, to make those slight differentiation. I think what you mentioned, AI can it does speed up things, right? But at the end, it's always going to be the human aspect that sets it apart. I guess from that, how is that affected the way you're thinking about growth, or are you is your do your plans stay pretty similar regardless of how the landscape's developing at Pharma Search?
As far as my growth, we are focusing on the startups, the small to medium-sized companies that, they're the ones that are serious. They're the ones that have skin in the game, and
Mm,
we like working with those. As far as automation, and I have it inside my applicant tracking system. It helps, keeps me notes, keeps my calendar up to date, pops up on the phone, says, call John. It does all that stuff, but I don't let it make the calls for me. I don't
mm,
let it do automated outreach to someone, and I get those here. I get
mm.
automated messages here, and that ain't right. You know,
Nah,
it ain't. If we're two professionals, we're going to talk. It's okay if you tell me no.
mm,
Okay if you say I'm not interested. You know, don't be rude, but
yeah,
I would expect you to hang up on me if a robot called you. But
yeah,
it is good, and it can keep you on schedule. It can keep you grounded, but don't let it replace the human factor.
no, absolutely, absolutely. And I guess would you say based on that, what's genuinely working well for you right now, like from on the client side, on the company side? Are there one or two things that you could say that over the last couple years that these are the ones that these things have set you apart and you want to keep these going as long as you can?
I would say what what m- we do that I don't know if it's different. I just heard this yesterday from one of my hiring managers. So we still apply the human aspect. We still apply the conversation aspect of being an adult, talking to an adult about adult situations, and not being afraid to tell the candidate no, and at the same time not being afraid to talk to the hiring manager and say, you're wrong. You're
Yeah,
wrong about this guy because you missed something here. Let's discuss it. That's what a headhunter recruiter is supposed to do. It's not about sending 15 resumes. And
mm,
that's the way we work. I refuse to be a resume mill.
absolutely, absolutely. And I guess on the flip side of that, over the past few years, what would you say has been perhaps frustrating or maybe harder than it should be? Has it been more from the recruiter side, the candidate side? What would you say?
Now, I'd say the candidate side, it hasn't got more difficult. Candidates now today are not like they were, we'll say 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you could call somebody about a job, and if the monetary aspects were really good, it was nothing for people to pick up and move,
Mm,
right? Today, candidates are thinking, and I think it's the right way to think, thinking about life. They're thinking about their families more.
mm,
And us as recruiter, we got to realize that when we're dealing with this, we're not just impacting on our client, we're impacting on families, right?
mm,
So I think candidates today are looking at staying close to parents or staying close to their university or staying where they're comfortable. It could be in Cambridge. They don't want to go to Provo, Utah, right? And it doesn't matter if it pays 20 grand more. They don't want to go to Provo, Utah. It's lifestyle. And I can respect that. Now, it wasn't like that 10 years ago. Dealing with candidates, that's really the biggest change. The younger candidate crew tends to be more about compensation than what the job entails to some degree. It's a little higher, but not normal. Dealing
Mm,
with clients has gotten more difficult uh, because one, they've jumped on the AI bandwagon.
mm.
I had a chief people officer tell me that they allow AI to tell them who they need to interview. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. Oh, wow. It's like,
Yeah.
that's fine, dude. You don't want to work with me. That then, if I need someone, they're coming out of your company. Um, and the other aspect of that is you've got the younger crowd of recruiters that are good people and good recruiters, but they cannot have a one-to-one intellectual conversation with pharmacologist, toxicologist, microbiologist about skill sets because they don't have the product knowledge yet.
Mm,
They're not pushed to have that product knowledge. When I got into the business, that was number one. You got to be able to talk the talk. They don't do that today because of automation.
mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I suppose on that, with AI, we only expect it to keep developing over the next couple years. How do you potentially see that changing, or do you see it changing at all, especially for your business at the moment? Say next 12, 18 months, do you see a big change at the moment or no?
I think we're starting to see a transition now. Um, Last year and the beginning of this year, there were several companies that I called on that had needs in very detailed sciences. And I was working with some stellar candidates who were looking for new jobs.
Mm,
That's normally not what I do. I work for the client, but these were good people. And I would call and have conversations with HR, and they're like, no, we got this. We're good. And I'm like, you got 400 jobs, man.
mm,
What do you mean you're good? You know, because they're relying on that system, they pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for to work for them. I think
mm,
now we're starting to see people realize maybe that system's not exactly everything.
yeah.
We need to talk to people and we need to use experience. So I think that's changing. I think we're morphing into almost a candidate driven market. And I
Mm,
think a lot of human resources people are figuring out we kind of got to do the old school way, even though we have AI, because we're not going to find the people we need
mm,
without it. And I think some of them are learning that candidates are saying, yeah, you can offer me a lot of money to move to Danbury, Connecticut, but I'm not leaving Austin, Texas. You know, I think that's where we're at. I think we will be almost in a candidate driven market by mid-year.
wow. Wow. Yeah, that's certainly interesting to think about, and an interesting outlook on the market. Um, I suppose if we were to finish off, like hypothetically for Pharma Search itself, and I don't know if you're looking at how deeply you're looking into competitors and stuff, but at the moment, if you say hypothetically had a magic wand to wave in business right now, something that's holding you back or slowing you down to progress, what would you use that on? Or is there even a problem or a bottleneck right now that you see in your industry?
I For us, I'm not one of those that's going to put a cap on how many clients we have because that company may only need one person, may
Mm,
only need one job filled. They may be a clinical stage company and they don't have the high budgets. They may be launching an entire drug and need 30 people. I'm I want to help anybody I can help. So I'm not going to put a cap on clients or a cap on jobs because it's my job to support the industry. I can stage up to where I need to take care of my people. Um,
Mm,
if I had that magic wand, it would be more people understanding that there are recruiters out there, not just myself. There are those of us out there that when we call you to help you with a position, it's because we enjoy what we do. We're good at what we do, and call us back, communicate.
mm.
The communications, I think, is the biggest broken problem we have in not just the pharma and biotech world. And I talk to a lot of recruiters that, nobody picks up the phone. They don't communicate. Well, if you don't communicate, everything breaks.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a great outlook, I guess, with this younger generation as well, where um perhaps they feel like maybe they have so many options. They, everything's online, everything's the no one really picks up the phone these days. Everything's on text or DM or email. I guess potentially that's played a part because it's the same people that are applying for jobs, right? So yeah, that's quite
But,
interesting
but
outlook.
when they're applying for those jobs, if you look at any open job on LinkedIn, you'll see high numbers of people clicked apply.
Mm,
All right. And it's the age old problem recruiters and HR people have had for years. There'll be 50 people apply and only 46 are qualified.
yeah.
Right. And I get that because they want to go to work. They want a chance. And they just keep getting passed on, which is AI predominantly is doing that. But we've now reached a part of a time of education where if you look on LinkedIn, there are a lot of human resource people that are looking for new jobs. They're dealing with the same thing the candidates are. They're learning.
Mm,
Oh, we didn't know it was that way. Well, welcome to our world. Uh, so yeah, it's that shotgun approach and I try every time I can to tell people, candidates, when I talk to them, they say, I saw this job at XYZ company, I put in for it. Like, that's not what you do. So you're one person in front of the one person that is qualified. If you're number 35 and the first 33 aren't qualified, it's going to take a month for HR to get to the guy that's qualified. You're getting in someone's way.
absolutely.
So yeah, I think yeah, the younger generation has to be realistic with themselves.
Mm. No, that I think that makes perfect sense. And what you've mentioned, it sounds like an incredible journey so far, and it feels like to me that you're you've got the right mindset around AI and stuff in terms of keeping the human in the loop concept,
Mhm.
because I suppose as AI only develops and gets stronger, it's going to be the humans that set each company apart, right? Because everyone's going to have access to the same models, same AI and whatnot. So I think that it makes perfect sense, and I think you're definitely headed in the right direction. I think yeah, it's an exciting time,
Yeah,
interesting
it
time
is.
coming up.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think with companies that are doing AI programs, whatever, kind of like what you're doing, you're getting ahead of it, and there's a place for that.
Mm,
We cannot expect that to be the sole end all be all and take away from the human aspect.
absolutely, absolutely. I think that in the end, the companies that will win over the next 10, 15, 20 years are going to be ones that are able to merge them correctly, have the right balance of human and AI, and actually have that synergist energy work together, and lap the competition that way. Because as you mentioned, there's firms that'll go fully AI, and then that's obviously not the way to do it. And the firms that are not willing to adopt AI will perhaps potentially will get left behind in terms of speed and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah. There's a certain, and I was against it, man. I'm being honest with you. A year and a half ago, it's like, hey, no way. I'm not putting, no, sir. And I learned I was wrong. So I use it for a certain aspect here,
Mm,
scheduling, data, things like that. Um, I'm not the most articulate and not a college educated guy. Uh, so when I write something, I get it checked, and it says, "Oh, you forgot this apostrophe," or capitalize this. It has a place, but humans take care of humans.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for all the insights you've shared with us. I hope you had a good conversation as well.
I did
But yeah,
enjoy
it's
it.
been a pleasure.